This story originally appeared on The Athletic, the best place to read about football online. Visit theathletic.co.uk/Tifo Football for a 7-day free trial and 50% off an annual subscription. Everton's pursuit of Carlo Ancelotti was more than 2 years in the making. Their ambitious majority investor Farhad Moshiri has wanted a truly world-class manager ever since he took over in February 2016. Now, he thought he had one in Ronald Koeman, but when the Dutchman's spell in charge flatlined in his second season, Moshiri decided to try again. After dispensing with Koeman, he began a pursuit for a manager who really would bring the A-list to a region he'd called the Hollywood of football. He turned to Ancelotti. There was a similar time of year. The call first went out to the Italian in November 2017 as Moshiri attempted to lure him out of a planned spell relaxing away from the game following his sacking by Bayern Munich 2 months earlier. Ancelotti's representatives were intrigued and impressed with what Everton had to say, but the former Real Madrid and Chelsea manager was reluctant to join a club mid-season, preferring to wait until summer 2018. The suggestion in some quarters was that Ancelotti wanted a clean slate, a summer transfer window, lots of money to spend, and former Swansea manager Paul Clement as his assistant. Everton needed someone there and then, eventually turning to Sam Allardyce. The following May, a week after Moshiri sacked Allardyce, his dream target Ancelotti was unveiled as Napoli's new manager on a 3-year contract. But fast forward to a few weeks ago, and once again, Moshiri needed a new manager. He dispensed with Marco Silva on December the 6th, and the pressure was on to finally find the man who can revive the fortunes of a club in which he has, under his watch, invested almost £500 million on transfers alone. Meanwhile, despite guiding Napoli through the group stages of the Champions League, on December 10th, Ancelotti was looking for work again after being sacked by Aurelio De Laurentiis, and Moshiri wasted no time in getting in touch. And of course, the wider footballing community wasted no time in arching a quizzical eyebrow. But Moshiri thinks big and has always craved a big name. A well-placed source recalls the owner speculating aloud during one of his first recruitment meetings over the possibilities of signing Cesc Fabregas and Mesut Ozil, as well as Joe Hart, who was at the time highly thought of both for England and Manchester City. The summer sacking after Koeman, he sounded out Diego Simeone. Simeone's people did not dismiss the approach straight away either. And after firing Silva, approaches were made to Maurizio Pochettino, out of work having been sacked by Tottenham on November the 19th. Now, the Argentine wasn't interested, but it set the tone for the type of manager Moshiri really wanted, even if he would allow others to suggest more predictable names in the wider search for a new boss. Now, emboldened by the support of someone with a track record of making things happen in football, he tried again for the man he'd always wanted. Moshiri knows fellow Iranian Kia Joorabchian from his time at Arsenal, and the businessman is a trusted ally. The Athletic understands that in the past, Joorabchian has been asked for his thoughts on important decisions, including the dismissal of former manager Marco Silva and the prospective appointment of Victor Pereira. But it was actually Joorabchian who suggested that Everton could move for Ancelotti. The former Chelsea manager had initially been in the frame for the Arsenal job, only for the North London club's head of football, Raul Sanllehi, to veto a move in favour of the younger Mikel Arteta. It was a turn of events that was believed to have disappointed Ancelotti, but the feeling in the agent circles, particularly those in the capital, was that the Italian nevertheless remained keen on a swift return to management, with a Premier League club his priority. Everton, for their part, had seen Pereira, the early favourite, rule himself out of the running on Tuesday, December 9th. A host of other candidates were mooted. Chairman Bill Kenwright suggested Arteta, Bournemouth's manager Eddie Howe, or a return for David Moyes, while Red Bull's head of sport and development Ralf Rangnick was also discussed. The Athletic also understands that Moyes was the closest of the trio to joining, with a deal at one stage appearing likely. It's thought that he felt the job was as good as his, and he was subsequently unimpressed by the mixed signals he received as Everton's interest faded. Moyes is even believed to have withdrawn from a spot on BT Sport's coverage of Saturday's game, focusing on his ex-player Arteta so he was not placed in a difficult position discussing his situation. Former Arsenal boss Unai Emery was another to meet with Moshiri and Kenwright. Ancelotti's sacking from Napoli and ensuing availability, however, changed the equation completely. Sensing an opportunity to finally snare the Hollywood manager Moshiri had always desired, the pair made tentative steps by contacting Ancelotti's representatives about a possible move. Now, despite reports to the contrary, Ancelotti did not travel to Merseyside for talks the Monday prior to his appointment. High-level meetings of this nature nearly always take place in London, where both Moshiri and Kenwright are based. Instead, the Italian flew to the capital a day later for talks on the Tuesday, where he was represented by his new agency, Base Soccer. Then came the mind-boggling contract proposal, worth in the region of £11 million a year before tax, and the promise of a huge transfer war chest. A source with knowledge of the deal suggested to The Athletic that Ancelotti is likely to receive a very big budget to help revamp the Everton squad in his image. By Tuesday afternoon, real momentum had developed behind the deal. Ancelotti had been won over during the process, in which he grilled the Everton board as much as the other way around. He insisted on a long-term contract and has gradually been convinced by the sincerity and ambition of the owner. With Ancelotti and his people agreeing in principle to join Everton, all that was left to tie up were a few of the finer details. With those matters finally resolved, Ancelotti signed a 4.5-year contract early on Saturday. Sources have suggested that Ancelotti will earn an annual net salary of around £6 million. It represents another substantial investment in the future of the football club, given that Moshiri will also continue to pay the wages of former manager Silva until such a time as the Portuguese finds employment again in football. The lads are buzzing to work with Ancelotti, said a source close to the first team. He's supposed to be excellent at building very good relationships with the players, and he'll also attract big names, so when he comes in on his first day, the squad will want to impress him to make sure they are part of his plans. The script for this video, written by Greg O'Keefe and Patrick Boyland, was originally featured on The Athletic, the best place to read about football online. Whether it's more behind-the-scenes insight, dedicated local reporting about your team, or rich storytelling from around the world, you'll find it all in one place. The Athletic has even released a bunch of brilliant new podcasts, including an Everton-specific pod. So, get a 7-day free trial by visiting theathletic.co.uk/Tifo Football and get 50% off if you sign up for an annual subscription. That's just 8p a day. To support Tifo, support The Athletic. Thank you for watching.